Okay, I unmuted it for just a second to make sure that we got audio coming through. Live on here. All right, we are now rolling. Live. Sorry for now. It's gonna. I mean, I think I could edit it out from the YouTube side. It's definitely not as easy as editing a podcast, but I'll certainly cut out like the first 10 minutes here. We've been struggling for some weird reason. The stream wasn't showing up, and I'm assuming for anyone there that might join us here in a bit, it probably wasn't showing for them either. But yeah, it wasn't showing for Peter to get into the chat, and yeah, not sure exactly why that is, but we're here now, and it should be showing for everyone. But sorry, we were running a tiny bit late as it was, and then spent another about 15 minutes here trying to figure out why the heck the live stream wasn't showing up for anyone. But should be showing up now, so we're here getting ready for the next round table here. And yeah, looks like we got at least someone else in the chat. But let's go ahead and hit the intro real quick and get started on the show. 1 second.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, but not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland to the Dark Tower came.
We are quartet, one from many. Let the palaver begin.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's Magnum Opus, the Dark Tower series. My name is Tad.
And I'm Peter.
And Peter is bringing disease to the studio.
I got Captain Trips.
Oh, man, comes in here all miserable and bringing his germs. I've avoided any illness up to this point. The weather's turned here in Utah, so it's certainly a time that a lot of people are getting sick, with the severe drop in weather. But
yeah, it dropped drastically a couple weeks ago, and it got my daughter sick, and then I thought I was in the clear. She got better. We had her birthday and everything, and then Sunday I woke up and I had that little tickle in your throat, and you're like, oh, no, it's just, it's fine. I woke up Monday, dude. I felt like death on Monday. I ended up missing a bunch of work this week and everything, trying to get better, and it has not gone well for me. My wife's sick now, so. Yeah. And of course, my daughter's perfectly healthy now because she's the one that got us sick. So it's like two sick parents trying to care for a 6-year-old is just like, ugh.
I'm hoping I can dodge the bullet here. I guess the one benefit to doing one of the big benefits of doing the show live together is I feel like there's a little bit more, I don't know what you call chemistry, I guess, like being in the same room. But here's the downside now is that illness is brought into my inner sanctum here, the studio. And I also just finished The Stand too, last night or the night before, I think. Yeah, it was great to finish the book again.
Please don't put me down. It's not Captain Trips, I swear. It's just a cold.
Yeah, that's what they all say. Yeah, so we're here for, I guess I can change the slide too. We're here for roundtable number 63.
Woo.
1963.
Too soon.
Yeah, not a good year for presidents that year. At least one in particular. I guess there were two that year.
There was
2 presidents that year. Yeah. So number 63 here. We'll start off with the intros real quick. First of all, I want to warn you guys about spoilers. If you guys have not finished the 7 primary books of the Dark Tower series, we will spoil them freely here in this episode, as with every roundtable. If you're not finished with the primary books, you can stick to our book club episodes. In those, we generally don't talk any further than we are currently covering. And right now, we are just approaching Well, actually, yeah, we're just about for the point where Roland is going to jump into Odetta's head.
Yep.
I think we've just jumped over to seeing her side of things, but we haven't got to the point to link her and Roland just yet.
Yep.
So
It's like the flashback part first.
yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. If you haven't finished, that's kind of where you can. So I guess as long as you're not further behind than that, the book clubs are definitely the episodes to be listening to for you. And a lot of the side stuff we may spoil as well, short stories, comic books, that kind of thing. But those are generally not as things that concern people as much as the 7 primary books of the main tale. Next up, if you want to find us, you can do that a number of ways. If you're listening to us on YouTube here, that's one way, obviously. But if you want to find us in a more traditional podcast manner, you can do that on iTunes. You could stream us on Stitcher and basically any podcast service out there we should be available on. If you could be so kind as to subscribe, rate, and review us on any of those services, specifically iTunes being the most prevalent, we would definitely appreciate that. It helps the show. I have definitely seen a lot of the uptick in ratings on iTunes. We definitely appreciate that. It helps a lot.
Thank you, Size.
Yep, indeed. And next up, the show notes. If you want to find the things that we're talking about, if you're listening to the podcast in the previously mentioned ways, you're not really seeing what we're seeing, such as images, or if you want to get links to some stuff. Like today, there's an article I want to cover that's got a lot of cool stuff in it, but we won't be covering a lot of the cool stuff because it isn't really Dark Tower related. So, for instance, in something like that, go to the show notes, darktowerpalaver.com, and check out the rest of the article that I reference from, and you can read the whole thing there. Next up, if you want to be part of the Palaver, you certainly can, as you are a member of the Extended Quartet, and Peter can tell you the best way to do that if you can make it through without dying.
The best way to reach us is through email. It's darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. And then you can find us on the Twitter. It's @darktowerpod. That's @darktowerpod. We also stream our shows live like we are right now. It's youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. And then also check out some older shows on there. Book clubs are never on there due to the copyright of the sound clips that we use. But you'll find all of our roundtables on there. And it's the best way to interact with us during the show because you can chat with us, as I just saw Tad typing out a message to our chat just now.
Yes, indeed. Now, I will correct one thing you said. Not all of our roundtables are on there. The roundtables...
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, the roundtables insofar as when we started doing it on YouTube will be there, but it definitely doesn't go back, not even a majority of the way, honestly. No. But the last, I guess, chunk of time, it certainly is there, so you can definitely do that there. I just don't want to get people too excited thinking they can go all the way through on YouTube.
And all future ones we have planned right now are on YouTube. Unless that's still... Are we still looking at possible change?
I don't think we really had any issues last time. I think it really just comes down to, so long as we don't do it at kind of the prime time of internet day, internet usage and stuff, I think we're generally okay with that kind of thing, I believe. So
one of the great things about moving it a few hours earlier is avoiding that prime time area.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so yeah, we are, I don't know, where are we at? I guess we're kind of here, I guess it's November now.
I know, right? We're coming up really fast on the Flag Summit. Are we still doing that? Did we decide the last show of the year? Yeah. I think that's kind of what we threw out there, so I think we're still planning that. I don't think I really have I haven't really looked at the calendar to see what the date is on that. Let me pull up a calendar here and figure out with our recording schedule. So we're recording here, then we have us recording on the 17th of this month as well. The 15th, which would then put us on the 1st. So the 15th of December.
The 15th, our last one.
Yeah, usually we take that week after Christmas off.
Yeah, that's true. Then we kind of come back when we can recalibrate. We usually try to plan the shows to make sure that when we set our shows with the every other week schedule, that we don't run into big things like big holidays, and they tend to line up well enough with a bi-weekly podcast that it usually works out. So then we'll be back a number of weeks after that. So
yeah, it's really nice that Thanksgiving and Christmas line up perfectly with a bi-weekly podcast.
Yeah, indeed. Now I think I want. Let's see. I'm going to throw things really through a loop, because who doesn't love some chaos, right? Let me.
Oh God, what are you doing to me?
Let me pull up my thing here that I control the slideshow with.
This is what Tad does to me. He doesn't tell me anything going into a show. Recording at 3? Yeah, sure, man, I'll be there. I show up and then this happens.
I'm actually going to jump to an email to start, and then we'll bounce back, just because it kind of synopsizes I don't know. We'll see. It's actually just some feedback, but it addresses some of the questions that I wanted to bring up and just kind of throw it out to everyone to kind of have some input on as we go. This is most likely, a lot of this will be stuff that will apply to us with the new year. So let's go ahead and jump over to Eric's email, which is one of the newer ones, and we'll jump back to emails at the end of the show as we normally do. But I just felt like this tied in just well enough that, and who doesn't love chaos, right? I just finished The Stand. There's ample reasons to love, lawlessness, and although I guess that's not true, because that would put me on the side of Boulder, what with the chaos and
lawlessness. Get out of here.
If you want to keep things on time and the trains on time, there's only one city that had that going, and that was Las Vegas.
That's the key word there. Had that going.
Now, you know what? One thing I'm curious about the stance. We wrote it in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
There's a number of references in that. So he did the extended version where he put stuff back into the book a little bit later on. Like, I think, did they come out in the early 90s, the uncut version? But the only thing is, it
was around the time of the miniseries, right?
I think
bit after,
right in that area.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: there's stuff in that book, and it always, as a fan of like history, it always miffs me, because like there's times that he'll reference AIDS, which wasn't even called AIDS in the 70s when the book was written. He references Ronald Reagan.
I thought he wrote it in the 80s. Because didn't The Stand come out during that golden age that we talked about last time?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not this. I thought it was like in the late 70s though.
When he wrote it?
Yeah, they originally. So I'm thinking that he must have actually gone in, not just inserted the scenes that were cut out, but he must have done some massaging to allow for timeline stuff. Because there's a few different times that he mentions things, and it takes place in the 1990, 1991, right in that period. And it makes me wonder, like, with the, because I've never actually read the cut version. And I'd be curious with that, like, what of that kind of stuff is not in there, and also, does it take place? When does it take place? Does it still take place in 1990, or was that also something that was shifted forward to align with, like, I don't know? It's just something that perplexes me every single time I read it, where I'm like, one of these days I'll have to try to get my hands on the.
Or did Cy King just predict the future?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton that he does that's like super crazy with, like.
You said he mentions Reagan.
Yeah, Mother Abigail talks about Reagan giving her a plaque about hitting 100 years old.
But when did she turn 100?
Well, she's 100 and like just under a decade, so less than a decade before the book takes place,
which would be in the 80s.
Which is when he was president. But
right.
if King wrote it in the late 70s, Reagan would have been president, and I mean, you're talking another presidential term before he became president. So it's just weird things, like, unless he was just rolling the dice on something. But it makes me wonder if he updated the version, not just adding the old scenes back in. I guess, I don't know. I guess that's,
check the chat.
Yeah, they have let's see, they have different versions, I believe. Each of the 3 updates, updates time frame. Okay, so Monster Games in the chat saying there is updates, but yeah, I guess it's just one of those things, because even in his intro and stuff, he doesn't really talk about that. He talks about inserting the scenes that were originally cut out and stuff, but he doesn't really talk about, hey, I also added some references to make it more in modern times or whatever. So it was just odd to me, and it's one of those weird things I always like think about when I'm reading it, and like one of those references come up, but I never like remember it that much further. Usually this is one of the first times it struck me outside of one of those references. So
yeah.
But we'll get over to Eric's email real quick. Eric says, Heil Gunslingers. Heil, he said, and then he goes on and says, you asked for feedback, so here goes. And he gives us 3 points here of feedback. He said, number 1, he says, love the podcast. You do a great job and are very knowledgeable about the material, and definitely appreciate that. Number 2, he says, please expand the pod to the greater King universe.
We were wondering. We've been talking about this, guys. Like, seriously, like, the Dark Tower Palaver is not necessarily something that it started as Dark Tower. Like, that was the sole purpose of this, was just to be able to talk about Dark Tower and get it out there to more people who are Tower junkies.
Yeah,
like us. I would think that we originally, that was one of the names we thought about, was Tower Junkies.
Yeah.
So
because that would go with the whole Eddie Dean thing too.
We both know that Eddie Dean's the best, so
I don't know about that. I mean,
Yeah, it took a second for it there.
well, because I was taking a drink.
Got to get it in there at the right time, guys. Timing is everything.
Roland's a Tower junkie, so it could be for him too.
It's true. It's true.
No, but basically, and you over the last couple episodes, you guys have probably heard some allusions to some different ideas. So basically, what it really comes down to, and because I've mentioned things like maybe doing more book club episodes, but basically, I mean, we've been pretty lucky up to this point with roundtables. But I will say that the stream of things to talk about is certainly getting less and less for roundtable episodes. I mean, the book clubs, of course, we can always go to those. So it really comes down to what are we going to do until some more stuff moves forward with the series.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go through and talk about some of the topics we've discussed in previous episodes again, and we love doing that. But we need, I guess, like we need to figure out exactly what we're going to do, and so as not to bore everyone to just go like, hey, we're going to do another episode on the end of the series, even though I'm not sure how much my views of it have changed or not or whatever. So I mean, we could definitely do that, and there's still some topics out there to talk about, certainly, but there is a little bit of it where it feels like we've kind of in a way pulled back because some of the stuff is obviously going to get covered in the book clubs most heavily. So it really comes down to what are we going to do? Do we want to see more book club episodes? And I think that even if we expanded a little bit into the larger King universe, I think it's always going to be from a Dark Tower paradigm. I think that's always going to be kind of like the default here. I don't think like this is ever going to turn into just a Stephen King podcast. Like no. I think it's always going to be very Dark Tower centric, and we're going to shift. If we did shift into the larger King universe a little bit more, we would instantly shift back as soon as things are a lot heavier with Dark Tower. But I don't know. I guess like it's one of those things we never really considered when we launched it about 3 years ago. Actually, it was something. We've just elapsed our.
We just had our anniversary. Is the end of September.
Yeah,
it was like our first episode was like the 30th or something like that when we recorded it, and then we put it out a couple weeks later.
Yeah, it was a couple days. It was a couple days. It was like the very beginning of October. So yeah, I guess we missed that. Didn't even think about it for some reason. I don't know why I was thinking it was beginning of November, but yeah, now that I think about it, it was beginning of October.
Are you sure we didn't postpone it? Like I thought we got like 1 or 2 episodes in the bag before we.
Yeah, I can't remember. I've looked at it not too long ago, but I'm forgetting. But it's right in there. Either way, we just elapsed another anniversary, and there's definitely something that we, like I said, with the books. I mean, we've got I don't even know. We've got the rate we're going, decades worth of shows easily, and obviously with like the series, so long as that moves forward, there's always gonna be plenty to talk about there.
We haven't even gone back to the comic books since that first dabble. We had a couple episodes about them.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to continue with that. Like there are definitely some stuff, but it comes down to what is our like I guess, like I said, even going into 2019, which is a great year, by the way.
Great year.
I guess we just want to maybe even hear some input from you guys. Is what would you guys like to see? Would you like to see us paint a little bit more outside the lines and get more into the larger King universe, talking about some different stuff, especially as we're seeing this large influx of King things in the world? And of course, like, and I almost think like in a way, is it kind of like the Unfound Door episodes, which I have like fallen behind a little bit, but as I said, I just finished the stand, so that like hopefully be looking at one here pretty soon. But it's a matter of like seeing everything from a perspective of the Dark Tower, and it could be something to like whatever, and it could even be like with the Unfound Door episodes. There's like, for instance, you were talking about coming in on the stand one. And there was even the thought of that is, what if we rope that in, and in terms of just kind of make that to where Unfound Door episodes happen instead of if there's not a lot going on for a round table. I mean, we always have emails, of course, and we're always going to be super consistent with that and making sure we keep up on it. But yeah, it's just one of those things that there's some different ideas to do for sure. But as of right now, with the way that round tables are structured, a lot of what's driven our show for 3 years, it's feeling like it's getting thinner than it ever has been before. So it's a matter of, what do you guys want to hear? And if you guys resoundingly tell us you just want this to be about Dark Tower, then guess what? That's what we'll do, because I have no problem with that whatsoever. It would just be a matter of going through and finding out what topics, do we want to go back to, how many listeners went through and listened to all the shows from the beginning. Maybe if people are newer, but they went back and listened to every show, then they've heard some of the conversations. But for those that haven't, they may want to hear an episode on, the end, or, things like that, like some of the different ideas we've done in the past. But I certainly don't want it to feel recycled, for sure. So Yeah, just kind of throwing it out there. Let us know what you guys think. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring this up, is because that point of reference, and we have obviously strayed a little bit into some of the other stuff over the last couple of years. But it's a matter of, do we want to make that a course that we're going to continue to do to kind of bolster stuff to talk about? Because, like, man, even like the alert things I'm getting, there's times I'm going through like last episode, I went through almost over a month's worth of emails, and I think we only had 2 things to talk about, and I think both of those were even King related. Versus,
you mean articles? You said emails.
Yeah, no, the emails I get that that flag me.
I got you. I thought you were meaning fan emails, so that's where my mind went.
Yeah, no, like emails like that because I have Google email me every time Dark Tower is mentioned, or like all these kind of things. And yeah, so it's just one of those things that there's a little bit less going on now, which is kind of weird, because there was a while there that we didn't think we'd ever get through all the stuff right around the time of within 6 months of the movie coming out. Yeah. So there was just Dark Tower stuff everywhere. So it's just something to think about what we want to do going into 2019 for programming wise. And just let us know, because like I said, I've thought about roping in the Unfound Door episodes as just a regular thing rather than being a side thing. We definitely could do more book clubs, which I'm totally open to, and we might want to do to get through them a little bit quicker. We'll definitely bounce back to the comics. That is something that we have neglected a tiny bit, but it's a matter of things I don't know. I'm trying to think of what's out there right now that's to be talked about, whether it's even other books
Here's the one thing that I definitely want to throw out there, because this is something that I don't know if we talked about this on the air last time, or if it was just me and you after kind of BSing afterwards, doing our little catch up like we always do, is I have no problem if we do a King episode where it's not necessarily where it has to be fully Dark Tower. If the fans want us to do a video commentary like we did for the Dark Tower movie, for the 2 It movies, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Ted, but me personally, I got no problem with that. When it comes to looking at things like, you want me to do an episode on Pet Sematary, which, by the way, I just finished.
Oh yeah.
I have no problem with that. You want us to read Cujo and finish it by a certain point and do an episode on Cujo? Maybe not like a blow by blow, not as deep as the book clubs, but you want us to do like a review and how it ties to the Dark Tower,
like an Unfound Door episode, basically.
Is exactly. Yeah. If you want to tie the Unfound Doors into what Eric's talking about, expanding into the King universe, man, I got no problem with that. King is my life when it comes to literature. Like I go through my Audible
I just
library.
did that the other day, yeah.
I scroll through my Audible and it's like, okay, I got the 7 Harry Potter books, I got the 7 Dark Tower books, I got a couple historical books that you mentioned to me, a couple of true crime stuff, and literally like 17 King books so far.
Yeah,
and that's not even counting like the 7 Dark Tower. That's just King books.
Yeah,
outside of the Dark Tower. I got Dr. Sleep loaded up now. I haven't had a chance to start it just simply because I gotta be. I'm gonna come back to the reason why I haven't started Dr. Sleep. You got to remind me of that.
I almost I've been searching on Audible recently to find something, but I'm like, I'm gonna hold off because I want to keep The Stand fresh in my mind.
Yep.
So yeah.
But you got to remind me why I haven't started Dr. Sleep. That's a story that I was going to bring up on the podcast today, and I didn't tell you about that. But I have no problem with that. If we want to do commentaries on the series of 11/22/63, great.
Yeah.
We want to go back and do reviews of the old King era movies.
Shawshank.
You want us to do Green Mile, Cujo, Firestarter,
Christine.
Christine, any of those ones?
Yeah.
I'm game.
Yeah.
I'm totally game with that. The one thing that I don't want to get away from, though, is I do not want to get away from the tower.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's
always my central thing here.
I think that's always going to be our foundation, no matter what we do, is going to be that. And that's what I said is that even if we dabbled away from this, and then like the second that the stuff starts to go again because of the TV series or whatever, that'll come back into the beginning or the center frame of it all.
Well, it's kind of like what happened with our book club episodes when we got close to the movie.
Yeah, they fell off.
They fell off drastically.
Because there was just so
there's
much
going on with the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. The movie. Sorry, not movies.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things. I do want to. I mostly wanted to throw it out to the listeners. Please engage with us on like Twitter, Facebook, emails, that kind of stuff, because we want to hear what you guys think. Because ultimately, the show is for you guys. Like Peter and I, we could go like on any number of topics. So like I don't know, like this could as much be a not saying this is an option, but I'm just saying like this easily could have been a Star Wars podcast. This easily could have been God, what else? I can't even think of all the other stuff.
We could have done Marvel. We could have done DC. Well, maybe not DC when we started this, because I wasn't as huge a Batman fan then. We could have easily done sports, football, for sure. We definitely
history.
We have so many similar tastes. It's unreal how well we like mesh together when it comes to like different things. We were talking. What were we talking about the other day? We texted each other the other day about something, and it's just random. Just it was the Arrowverse.
Yeah,
we were talking about the Arrowverse just randomly the other day. Just like stuff like that. We're complete nerds for a lot of the same stuff. Horror films. We've talked about that even on this podcast. We've let the horror films bleed in a little bit.
Yeah.
We went and saw Halloween and everything like that. So I mean, But Dark Tower it's special.
Yeah, for sure, and it'll always be the center of this show. It's more just a matter of, as we move outside of the center and move more towards the outer core of the show, as we need to.
Right.
Well, I want to know from the listeners, and Peter does as well. What do you guys want to see? What are you guys interested in? So that we can kind of use that input to help us figure out exactly how to aim, I guess. We gotta aim the podcast in a certain way now that we've got a little bit less of a target rich environment that we had a year ago, or a little bit more than a year. Call it 15 months ago.
Yeah,
things were a hell of a lot different than they are now.
Oh,
so we just want to get your guys' input on it, and just kind of use Eric's email here, and he has another point before he signs off here too, it kind of might tie into this a little bit, but I just wanted to at least use, because once I saw this email come in, I was like, this is kind of one of the things we got to bring up anyway. So let me finish this up, and then we'll move on here to the normal flow of the show. And his last one, he says, please, and he says, and I know I'm speaking for a majority of the listeners, stop worrying so much about spoilers. Castle Rock was over for a while before the pod came out. If someone didn't finish the show, they shouldn't have listened to the pod until they do. It's very frustrating to listen to you talk about whether to talk about a spoiler or not talk about a spoiler. Tell everyone in the beginning of the pod that we were talking about the whole book or the show or movie, and if you didn't finish, wait until you finish to listen to the pod. And
I like that. I like that a lot, because that can also, especially if we're going to branch out into the wider King universe, then it needs to be simply put out that, okay, if we're going to talk about the tie-ins between Insomnia and Dark Tower, well, exactly like Eric said, okay, Insomnia, Dark Tower, if you haven't read one of those, be warned.
Check out.
Be warned.
Yeah.
This is your heads up. This is the warning sign before, no trespassing kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's funny because I don't remember stressing that much about spoilers in the Castle Rock episode. So
we worried about it.
That must have been, I thought we were just going full. Well, I guess we did go episode by episode though.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we were. I don't know. I guess that's just one of those things, like perception wise. I didn't perceive us talking that much about spoilers in that episode. So it must have just been kind of in a blind spot for me. So I do apologize. And in our normal roundtables, there's times that we stress about it just when we start to talk about other things. Like there's times
we've tried to avoid talking about like the ending of The Stand.
Yeah.
Even.
And I think that honestly it comes from one of those things, like that's not in my nature. There's some people that are like kind of like the spoiler phobic, and because of that they then treat that goes outward as well as inward.
Yeah.
And I'm really not that way. It's mostly just because I don't want to spoil things for people. But like honestly, I'm under the belief that like when it comes to something that's been out a while, like it's kind of on the person that's being spoiled. Like if you haven't watched a show from 10 years ago, like my personal beliefs, I've never really brought this into the show, but my personal beliefs have always been, then it's your fault if you get spoiled.
Right.
Or if it's a book from 20 years ago, or if it's whatever, like if it was like last time we talked about Halloween and it was literally the weekend that it came out, like we're not going to talk like whatever, like that's a little bit different because it's so new, people haven't had a chance. But if we're talking about, hey, we started for some reason talking about the original 1978 Halloween, if you haven't seen it at this point, like, you have no right to talk about it. So that's always been my belief, and I've never really brought that into the show because I didn't like it is kind of dickish a little bit, like that belief.
The one belief with that and we've talked about this before between myself and you is even like guys like me. I didn't know about Halloween until I met you. If you had just gone off about it and I didn't know about it, it would have been like, oh, well, that would have sounds like a great movie. I'm glad that I just heard the whole synopsis from you and the twist at the end. You know, so I think the idea is, especially if we go forward with more involvement in the King universe, I think we need to put it out there, like Eric said. It's a general warning. Guys, this is going to be the King universe. Like, and the problem with that is that I know that a lot of our fans haven't read everything. I mean, I haven't read everything.
But here's the question though: does knowing plot points really ruin enjoyment? I guess that's a question. It's different for everyone, but for me, it's never been that way. Like Harry Potter, not that I can list them off the top of my head, but I know I've heard what would probably be spoilers, though I've never read or seen a second or read a word of it. But I'm sure over the years I've heard things that when I finally do read or watch, I'll be like, oh yeah,
that's what that is.
Yeah, I've heard that reference before, but it's not going to like ruin my enjoyment of it. I know everyone's different on that, so I will say that's mostly I guess being as spoiler phobic as we have been on the show is against my nature, so I'm not against being less worried about it as Eric asks us to here.
Yeah,
because being a little bit less caring about spoilers is more to my nature anyway. It's more just like I don't want to ruin things for people, like in terms of like for this show, but like in my heart of hearts, I'm always just like, man, if you haven't read The Stand by now, like
it's not my fault.
Yeah, read the damn thing, and even if we didn't, if I freaking said X, Y, or Z from that, like, I don't think it's really going to ruin your enjoyment of a book. I mean, there's a reason I read it every year. It's
a bunch of people die.
It's a great book with great characters, and every time I read it every year for a reason, because going back and revisiting those characters that I enjoy so much, and that's more the center of the story for me than like, oh my god, what's going to happen with this plot point? Like, what's going to be the end of this? Like, that's never been my even reading the first time. It's always just more of a matter of like, holy shit, this is like a really cool, like universe that's being built here with this. So I don't know. Yeah, but I feel you, Eric, for sure. And we will definitely, especially if we move on start dabbling into the wider King universe.
Yeah.
The byroads and backroads of America. As Mr.
Father.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Callahan, I think he forgot he dropped his faith, I think, at a certain point that I don't know if he deserves the title Father anymore.
He got it back. He's Father Callahan.
Speaking of which, did you hear that the staircase from The Exorcist, they might be making that a historic landmark?
Oh, the outside one?
The staircase, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Father just made me think of that.
Yeah.
Obviously, for reasons. But yeah, no, I thought that was kind of cool. That'd certainly be something I'd want to see if I ever went to that area. All right, so then he signs off, long days and pleasant nights, signed Eric. So thank you, Eric, for your email.
Thank you, Si.
And hopefully got your point through there, along with us kind of, I don't want to say hijacking, but us, grabbing your email and going to a little bit different, or expanding upon it to talk about some topics we wanted to talk about anyway. But it was a very timely email. Thank you, Eric. So now we're going to...
Hold on, before you go on, Pet Sematary.
Yeah. It's that's Dexter that read that, right?
Yeah, the guy that plays Dexter from the Showtime.
Dexter.
Showtime show.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with King's statement at the beginning of that book.
That it's too dark.
What's his prologue? Is it prologue that's before?
Prologue.
Prologue
intro.
is before. It's his little like author note before the book. He says it's the absolute most terrifying book he's ever written for himself personally. Of the things that I've read so far, I wholeheartedly agree. Even over it, The Stand, anything in the Dark Tower, Pet Sematary freaked me out the most.
Yeah.
I'm a father. I'm a husband. If you've read it, if you understand exactly where I'm going with this. Okay? The ending to that is so wide open that I just can't.
Okay.
I just can't.
Here's the question.
Yeah.
You're in that position.
No.
Okay.
No.
You're not going to do it?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
At least,
no.
at least you got that. Okay.
Hell no.
I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying I don't know how to treat you family people and how freaking crazy you might get.
I'm going to take a leaf out of Eric's book, and I'm going to drop it right now, guys. If you haven't read Pet Sematary and you don't want it spoiled.
Well, I think it's like one of those things. Like it's from the movie too, right?
Exactly. Let's drop pretenses here. Let's take Eric's advice, and let's drop pretenses here, okay? If you haven't read or seen Pet Sematary and you still want to, there is a new movie coming out.
Yeah.
Next year.
Yeah, 2019.
Next year for it. So if you want to see it or anything like that, now's the time to stop listening. Jump forward about 5 minutes. And we'll be good. We'll be past this because it's a simple conversation. Because Tad's already asked me the question, but the context of it is there. Okay, that's spoilers given. Okay, if they're listening, it's their fault now. The Pet Cemetery concept is simply the fact that there is an Indian burial ground behind this guy's house that he finds out when he moves there. If you bury something there, it comes back to life. His little boy dies. He buries him there. He comes back to life. It's that simple. Tad, you were asking me if I would do that if it was my kid or my wife.
Yeah.
Fuck no. Not a chance in hell.
Okay. That's what I would want to hear. It's exactly the answer I would want to hear.
Dude, I've seen Night of the Living Dead, all right? I've seen Land of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. I've seen what zombies are. No fucking way. If they come back different, not having the conversation.
Yeah.
If they came back exactly how they were before, we'd be having a different conversation.
Yeah.
But the whole rationale he has in his mind where he argues with himself saying that, well, they buried him too late, or maybe it was just this, or maybe it was... No, you're an idiot, dude. You're going to bring back a freaking zombie.
Oh, that's great.
Freaking moron.
I almost bought that one. I have like 3 credits I'm sitting on currently. I think
I got 2.
Yeah, I've been kind of debating on what I want to do exactly. I do need to get back on course with the things. I jumped forward for the stand, but I want to jump back. I want to say... Oh, is it? I can't remember which one. I think Rage might be the next one, which is the one that I'm going to have to buy.
It's having the hard
in
time
that
finding.
collection.
Yeah.
But I might jump back to that first and then move forward. So I'm probably going to have to forego Pet Cemetery for now.
Yeah.
But I'm also just holding back because again, I want to wait till I, do some vocal vomiting for the stand on podcast wise before I move on to start reading other things. Not that it wouldn't be stuff that can come back to mind anyway.
You've read it enough times.
Yeah, exactly. Now here is the question though: is how far am I going to have to wait? So if we wanted to even test it out, I know next time would actually be a book club, but I wonder if we bumped that back one episode and then did a stand episode next, just because if we did a book club and then did the stand after that just puts me in a position where I'm probably not going to be getting another book until almost New Year's or Christmas.
Let's not do that to you.
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, I know we were talking about the book clubs are important, and they are. It's just a matter of the quicker we can do this, like an episode on the stand.
Yes.
Probably the better for me that I can go on and read some other stuff. I mean, I have podcasts that I listen to as well on occasion, but I'm certainly been more in more of a book mood recently, and. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not kidding. The ending of Pet Cemetery, What Happens, just flat out gave me absolute chills with how it ended, and I instantly uploaded Dr. Sleep. It's the one that's the oldest in my library that hasn't gone unread again.
Yeah,
it's all the way at the bottom. I've read it the one time. It's like I need to reread this again.
Yeah,
I've read The Shining since then. I need to reread Dr. Sleep. Because I think what it was is I read Dr. Sleep, and then I was like, oh my God, that was so good having Danny back. I need to go read about Jack. So I went and got The Shining, and I've read that recently.
Yeah.
So I seriously loaded it up. That was 5 days ago.
Did we talk about Dr. Sleep adaptation a little bit?
We have a little bit. Ewan McGregor's going to play Danny.
Yeah, but the director was asked about how he's going to handle The Shining recently, over the last month, maybe.
Oh, I didn't hear about this.
And basically he said we'd be crazy to ignore The Shining. But he doesn't really give us a lot. But it sounds like there's going to be allusions to the Kubrick movie. Not talking about obviously the first story, but about the Kubrick movie. Because if you've read The Shining, Dr. Sleep, and then watch the Kubrick movie, there's some differences there. So I really don't know what he's going to do. He doesn't go into it. But he does say that they're not going to ignore the Kubrick movie. So that'll be... Mm-hmm. Brings up questions about what they're going to do, but yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what
it is going to be interesting.
Okay,
that comes out in 2020, right?
I don't recall on that one. I'm losing track of what's when anymore. like I got to get some kind of crazy thing on the wall with like threads connecting all different things to remember everything. Okay, so next up, we're going to get into the articles now, as we normally would up front of the show, even though we're a little ways in now. And this one is called Amazon Video's lineup of original content may finally be a Netflix beater. And this is by Rory Cashin. And this is from Joe, which is at least a website. I didn't look that deeply into whether it's a physical publication, but Joe is a UK publication for generally targeted towards, it said young to whatever, like probably 18 to 35-year-old males. So that's kind of their who they're aiming at. And this is on October 20th, 2018. And this starts off, says there's no denying that Netflix has done a tremendous job when it comes to their original content. Outside of Netflix, though, European audiences haven't always had a great amount of variety, and what variety there was didn't provide enough of an incentive to start up a direct debit, which I suppose is the phrase for like auto pay for the United States. I don't know. And then he goes on and says viewers in the States have Hulu and HBO now, which aren't options over here. And while both Disney and DC are planning on kicking off their own streaming platforms in the not too distant future, for the time being, Netflix's biggest competitor here is Amazon Video, and with their latest upcoming slate, they may have finally delivered us a viable alternative. And this is the one I was kind of alluding to earlier. Go to the show notes and read this, because he kind of goes through. They basically had an event in London where it was kind of like one of those things where they're basically trying to kind of wow people, and they kind of talked through some of the stuff that Amazon has.
Amazon did this?
Yes.
Oh wow.
And yeah, no. I mean, Amazon did this event, right? And so, like, for instance, one of them, like, they had Jim from The Office.
John Krasinski.
Yeah. They had him there talking about season 2 of Jack Ryan, which is currently filming. So just for instance, there's that. But then they got to go through and list some of the big hitters they've gotten. Dude, it sounds, I didn't even know about a lot of them. So go read it in the show notes, because I'm just going to focus on toward the tail end here. Well, actually, I'm going to finish this up. It says, in early October, Amazon Video invited Joe to London to check out what they've got coming in the next few weeks, months, and years. And to say that they are putting everything they've got behind it is an understatement. And he said, and then he goes through and talks about everything. And then at the end here, he says, this was a warning shot, a display of strength and ability, and one that Netflix should probably take quite seriously. And he says, combined, the lineup was nothing short of astoundingly impressive. And even what they've shown us in London was far from comprehensive, with even more on the horizon. The Wheel of Time adaptation has begun development based on the book series by Robert Jordan. The Boys will be a much darker take on the superhero genre, fronted by Carl Urban and developed by Seth Rogen. And
The Boys?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then Stephen King's The Dark Tower series is still in the works there. So that's they just mentioned it that way. So I mean, there wasn't anything too crazy. Like, I was kind of hoping when I first started reading this article that maybe it'd be part of the like show that they had, but it wasn't. It was just mentioned by the writer here. So it makes me think that we're still kind of where we're at. I don't think that there's a green light yet, and it's just like whatever. We're just kind of. Whatever, but it's interesting that he would throw it in there, and amongst all the things they've got, it's definitely still there, and it's kind of interesting to see, because now in a lot of ways, just like before, we kind of like had like somewhat of a look at Sony and had some inner workings of them and MRC as a independent thing apart from Sony. We kind of got to know them because they were developing the Dark Tower. So if nothing else, this is a cool way to get to know Amazon and kind of what they're doing with their Amazon Prime service to combat Netflix in a pretty big, I don't know, it's like an arms race with the streaming services. So it's kind of cool. It's a cool article. Go back and read it if you want to see some of the cool stuff they have that they're doing. That it's obviously not Dark Tower related, but I just wanted to kind of touch on this. And then he says some of these shows are already available to start watching on Amazon Video right now, some of the next few weeks, and some maybe won't be appearing till this side of 2020. But it is clear that while it has felt that Netflix may have cornered the market for so long here, that time may soon be coming to an end. So that's kind of cool. Unfortunately, nothing crazy like, they, rolled out a new actor that's going to be playing Roland in this series, nothing like that. But the writer mentions it, and it is kind of cool to see what Amazon's doing.
Yeah.
So got that. Next up, we have this is actually one that kind of went a little bit viral, and if you're enough of a King fan, you probably already know about this. I kind of just felt myself going, yeah, and like this is a very, very old thing. This has been around for almost 40 years. But apparently a lot of people found out this for the first time. And the headline is Stephen King sells short story film rights to a student for $1. This is from Sam Haysom from Mashable on October 22nd, 2018. Dude, every single time I'm doing these, I keep typing 2019. I don't know if it's just I don't know if it's just like the Dark Tower thing, but like 2019 just keeps rolling like it's habit. I don't know what it is. So I guess I'm ready for when the year changes.
No, the worst part is you're wasting them. You're going to get to 2019 and you're going to think that it's 2017 or something.
It's 19 and 4.
Yeah.
Back in my day. All right. So this one starts off for anyone hoping to make their mark on the world of horror movies. You'd think that a Stephen King adaptation would pretty much be the holy grail. And then he says, for some students at Blano Gwent Film Academy in Wales, UK, though, it's a reality. The Academy recently signed a contract to adapt Stationary Bike, a short story featured in Stephen King's collection Just After Sunset, and they only had to pay $1 to do it. And then here's a quote. It says, we knew already that Stephen King was excellent at supporting education establishments, tutor Kevin Phillips explained to Mashable. And we came across this website where actually he releases many of his short stories for adaptation, for nonprofit, of course. Phillips is referring to Dollar Baby section of King's official website, which allowed for film students to request the rights for a selection of his short stories, which currently aren't under contract. You guys can go to that, and we'll have the link to the Dollar Babies on the show notes, so you can check that out. It's kind of cool. And then another quote here says, we pretty much emailed his secretary, Margaret, and she came back to us within 24 hours. And we told her what we wanted to do and that it's not for profit, that our students would be making it. And she sent us a contract through which was signed by Stephen King himself, said Phillips, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Kind of a cool behind the scenes of how this all works. And he says, after filling in some of the forms and posting back $1, the Academy had official confirmation a few days later. The students at Blanow Gwent Film Academy are in good company. King's granting students Dollar Babies rights since 1970s and some previous adaptations. Notably, the Shawshank Redemption director Frank Darabont 1983 version of The Woman in the Room have marked the start of some pretty big film careers. Yeah, so that's a little bit of a bit of trivia for you.
Wow.
That Frank Darabont did one of these Dollar Babies in 1983. And of course, later went on to do Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, and The Mist. Probably being, I don't know, would you say the greatest adapter of King works?
Yeah.
I mean, 3 for 3. Those are all 3 really good ones.
Yeah.
Not saying there's not better, maybe quote unquote better filmmakers that have touched King works, but I don't know if anyone's done better in the King universe than Mr. Darabont himself. So that's kind of cool. And then it goes on here, it says 2 students, 16-year-old Alfie Evans and 14-year-old Cirrus Cliff, are now working on adapting Stationary Bike into a script. Once it's ready, Phillips thinks around 30 students will likely work on turning it into a film. A large chunk of the story takes place in a single room, so the plan is to film most of it in the backstage area of the local theater. By next March or April, Phillips hopes the finished film should be ready. And then it said the next thing, so will Stephen King be watching? And then this is a quote, they insisted that we sent him a copy, Phillips said. That was part of the contract. Stephen always loves to see his work, and please send him a DVD when it is complete, which is really cool too. To get the attention of a guy like Stephen King, I think that's a pretty cool thing for anyone, let alone a bunch of kids that are not even driving, well, if barely driving age. Then it goes on and says,
well, they're in the UK, so the driving age is different there, isn't it?
I don't know. I know the drinking age is. I don't know.
Isn't it 15
I don't
in
know.
the UK for driving?
I don't know. I really don't know on that. I know drinking's 18 versus 21 here in the States, but I don't know about their driving age. Then it goes on and says, the main thing is that it'll be used to boost the confidence of our young and up-and-coming filmmakers to actually say that they've worked on a Stephen King film, Phillips said. So that's kind of cool. That's just kind of a fun article that kind of, like I said, it hit pretty big across the wires of the Stephen King, and not just that, but everywhere. I mean, if you're even slightly plugged into things, it seems like that was a pretty big news thing. And yeah, if you're a King fan, you may have already known about the Dollar Babies, but yeah, it's still pretty cool to see. And I'm not familiar with Stationary Bike. Are you?
No, never heard of it.
Yeah, I haven't either. And honestly, a lot of this stuff on Dollar Babies I've looked at. None of the titles have jumped out at me necessarily. But it is one of those things that like, I don't know, like it's not that I actually went and looked at each one to see where did they show up, what are they about, nothing like that.
Yeah.
It was just like none of the titles grabbed me because a lot of the ones that we know about have already been picked up by studios.
Yeah. It's 16 in the UK, by the way, and also Dr. Sleep is slated to come out first quarter 2020.
Oh, okay. It's first quarter, so that's probably going to be before the summer blockbusters.
It said January. It said expected January 2020.
Okay, so they're going to do like...
Which tells me that it's not going to be January 2020. Almost never do I ever see it like, oh, it's expected to be this month.
Yeah, I think, they probably haven't announced it yet, but I'm guessing they'll probably, if at earliest, they'll probably shoot for like a February release date, kind of in the Deadpool, Logan time period, more than anything, it would be my guess. But who knows? They could bump it too.
We got something coming out this February or March. What is it?
I don't know. I looked up stuff.
Oh, Captain Marvel.
Oh yeah, I guess that's in March.
That's what I said. February, March.
Yeah, February.
Because Logan came out in March.
No, that was like, wasn't it around Valentine's Day?
No, that was Deadpool. Deadpool came out like right around Valentine's Day.
I thought Logan did too. A year later.
Logan came out like very, very tail end of February, like the first weekend of March.
Because it's always like that meaty period now that everyone's looking at it, is like that second week of February is a good time to release stuff now.
Yeah,
apparently.
Logan did it just like a week later. There was a movie coming out that second week, like you're talking about, that year, the year after Deadpool, and then Logan came out, and then Deadpool 2 didn't do February, did it?
I can't recall.
I think it did a summer release.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember seeing it. I don't remember when it was though. Yeah, it's I don't know. Tough to say, but yeah, it's definitely a time period that we're seeing a lot of movies being done now. Is kind of in that area that has generally always been a dumping ground for shitty projects. But
it's the summer blockbuster kick.
But even that, like you're talking like March, April has generally always been considered like your summer movies that are like okay, but like January, February are dumping grounds. Like those for the longest time, those used to be places that you're like, oh, we don't have a lot of hope in that. Let's just throw it there, and that's all it was. It was just like shit. I mean, that's why Christmas movies are so big because they're able to carry a couple extra months with almost no competition. Like, but then that's been changing recently with your Logans and Deadpools and stuff. So I'm just starting to see we're going to be in a spot here pretty soon where we're probably going to be having decent movies coming out all year round, which for someone like me that, has plenty of money to spend at movie theaters, I don't mind. So, all right. So let's move on over to, let me see if, I don't know if we got some sound clippage here.
Probably not, knowing you. You don't, do you? Emails. Damn it. Emails. Tad's gonna read us what people wrote to us.
That's not getting deleted, right?
God damn it.
See, that's what healthy Peter sounds like.
This is what sick Peter sounds like.
Oh, I know you're going to get me sick. And I know it's all a plot, too. I know this is all planned.
For what?
I don't know. You're always trying to destroy me. Germ warfare,
No.
it's not below you.
How dare you call me a war criminal, sir?
Oh, man. All right. So moving on over to emails. Again, I guess this is kind of a fun episode where we started with them and ending with them. It's all a circle or a wheel. Okay. Also, I guess before we even get to the emails too, just real quick, I will mention there's been a lot of really cool Dark Tower / Stephen King pumpkins that were carved for Halloween, which are pretty cool. We had one on Twitter I just retweeted today, but I've seen a number of them over just over the little bit, just here and there, Twitter, different places that will like grab them from different places online and post them on like their like blogs and stuff, like movie places. But yeah, I have a hard time making normal faces on pumpkins, and here's other people that are like doing these grand, art pieces on pumpkins, and I'm just like, I did a smiley face
that looks like it's screaming in terror.
Yeah, that's definitely.
That also goes back to the fact that me and you can't draw worth a shit.
Yeah, it's not to mention on a round, bulbous, slippery thing, and then after you draw it on there, then you have to stab it with a knife and cut it with a. Yeah, it never.
You
works
usually
out.
just get carried away with the stabbing, so.
I mean, yeah, that's the best part, right?
Stabby.
Stabbing and the gutting.
Yeah.
Okay, so first up is Chris from Pennsylvania, in our ever growing roster of Chris's.
Yay, another one.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, it's great though. I love it, and thank you for giving us your location so that we can differentiate
thank you.
from the 25 other Chris's that we have. But it's so weird how that works, man. Like it's like the job I'm currently at and where you used to work. Like it was Josh.
Yeah.
Like there's
always so many Joshes.
I think at one point, the high point and I'm not even joking, there was like 17 Joshes.
Yeah.
To the point where there was a number of Joshes that had nicknames that that after a certain amount of time, people didn't even realize the person's name was Josh. Like they were always so known by their nickname. It's like,
yeah, I literally had conversations with people where it's like, yeah, you know his first name's Josh, right? What? No, he's called this.
Yeah. It's like,
he's called Stein. It's like, no, that's his last name. His first name's Josh.
Yeah, no, because nobody calls him that because we got 25 of them.
Yeah.
Or really, at one point, we were 17 of them. But yeah, our show has definitely got quite a few Chris's, but it's great, though. That's, at least it's, I don't know. I guess we can there's distinction, though. We pretty much have, there's no confusion on, like, a number of people doing it without locations or whatever.
We got Chris. Is it Chris from Topeka? Who's in Topeka?
I don't know. You can't put my memory on the spot like that.
And then we got Chris from N-World. I know that one.
Yeah. We got OG Chris
OG
from Pennsylvania. I can't remember. Like, what I need to do is just go through the email one of these days and just actually like make a list.
Yeah.
Just so I can keep track, because it's and then there's times that people will like not email for a while, so then I start to like get hazy on them because it's been a while. But yeah, no, Chris from Pennsylvania here is a new listener, and he actually hits us with a couple emails kind of in a row over a period of time, but it is definitely, oops, I accidentally clicked, there we go. Yeah, so he's got a few of them to talk about here, but it's great. So let's get started here. He says, hello guys. He says, my name is Chris and I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm a 44-year-old man who has been a Dark Tower fan since about the age of 17, just before the third book was released. So that
good Lord,
puts us in context of he would have been a fan. Yeah, I guess with only 2 books, and then the third book drops, and then he gets to wait for that.
That cliffhanger. I just don't know how you guys did it. You that had to wait for that. I don't know how you did it.
Oh man, there's part of me that wishes that like this is like a little bit like different time period, and when I was showing them to you, I could have like held it off from you and like made you wait at least a year. That would have been great.
You're like, yeah, they haven't released the new one. Yeah. And I just totally buy it.
Yeah. And you can't like jump on the internet and look it up, or you can't go to like 7 Barnes and Nobles around here. It would have been great.
You're evil, you know that? The fact that you actually find pleasure in thinking about doing that to me.
Oh,
Hashtag Ted is terrible. You're a monster. I cannot believe you sometimes.
Hey, it's not as long a wait as they had. That's my defense.
But I shouldn't have any wait.
Oh, man. I can't remember. I don't think I had book 4 bought at that period, at that point. So I think I had to like wait at least like a day or two to like get to a bookstore and buy a copy of it. It was usually I was pretty good about trying to make sure I had, like, if I was like halfway through a book or more, I had the next one ready.
Yeah.
But like for some reason that one I didn't. I don't remember why. And then I think I ended up finishing book 3 at a point when it was like late at night, and I can't remember like.
Yeah.
Then I had so much going on the next day I couldn't get. Yeah, it was.
I remember when you gave me book 3, you're like, let me know when you're partway through this, and I'm like, why? You're like, I need to give you book 4, and I'm like, well, it's gonna take me a while. Like, this is a thick book, I'm a slow reader, and you're like, trust me, you're gonna want book 4 with you. And I got it from you.
Yeah.
And I finished it like, I think it was like 1:00 in the morning, and I was like, oh, thank God, I have the 4th book. I opened it up and I read the end of the riddle.
Who needs sleep? Sleep is for the weak and the old.
I was in high school. I didn't need sleep. I was
Exactly.
17 years old. I could go on an hour's sleep and be just fine.
Okay, then he goes on and says, I have often said the Dark Tower series is the best thing ever committed to paper, and I have turned some friends onto it, but I have never gotten anybody as deeply into it as I am. And it definitely something that has been shared by a number of listeners now that have had that experience. Now, you're even better in some cases, though, because some people have not even had a chance to get any friends into it, even mildly. So you at least got that far. But yeah, it's definitely hard to get tower junkies or fanatics, or, that kind of thing for sure. And see, with you, I never had any worry about it. I just knew you, like, because we're so alike in a lot of ways. I'm like, I know it'll take. And if not, I'll just punch him in the throat until he reads it again.
That's why you did the Salem's Lot experiment first. You're like, is he going to take to Stephen King? Because if he takes to Stephen King, he'll take to the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
And then I read Salem's Lot, and I was like, feed me more.
But see, then like in that time period too, like we were like, Lord of the Rings was in theaters. You're all into that, and then we were both reading them because like whatever, because of the movies and stuff. So it was just one of those things. I was just like, stylistically, this is enough to where, like, I knew enough about you that like. I knew there was nothing in them that would necessarily be like off-putting to you unless King as a whole, like for some reason maybe King's style wasn't your cup of tea. That was going to be the only hurdle that I saw. So and then he goes on and says, I have literally read and or listened through the entire set of books more times than I can count, more than 20 for certain. That's impressive. That is definitely a lot. I think I can't. I honestly, I've lost count too.
Me too.
Because I've never really made that big of an effort to count. If I had to guess, though, I'd probably say somewhere in the realm of 10 to 12. But I will say that is probably boosted by the fact of this show. Yeah. I think I've like, especially early on the show, I think I went through like right when we had the idea for the show. I think I went through the whole series just to be like completely jazzed on it. Then I think I read it. I've probably gone through at least twice more during the course of the 3 years we've been doing this show. So call it 4 times or so that I've listened to it because of the show. That probably only would have been 1 or 2 times tops. So this show has definitely pushed me towards it. The fact that I'm also an Audible junkie is probably added. Okay, now we should be back on. Okay. So yeah, it's definitely 20 is definitely a huge number though. Yeah. Especially I mean, definitely had more time to read through them as a fan as long as that. But it is certainly still a huge number of times because it's a series that, like, if not for some of the things that I mentioned, I don't know if I would have been through a number of times just because it's so weighty. It's so big. There's so many books to read. There's a lot of emotion involved. You know, it's not like the stand that I could do every year. Like, I think I used to kind of look at it as almost like an every other year type thing, or maybe every third year type thing because it just needed some time in between. So it's definitely something that is crazy to read that many times. But not it's understandable though. Oh man, it is still giving us
it just came up for me again saying it's live, so
okay, it's just the connection thing keeps flashing to like orange and red instead of green. So I'm not sure what we got going here. Hopefully it's still going though. Okay, so next up, he goes on and says, each time I read through the series again, I enjoy it just as much as the last time, and I often pick up little nuances or things that I didn't remember or didn't pick up before, and I'm totally with you on that. I think that's why the book club episodes are so great because you know, with two of us doing it together, it just allows things to get fleshed out even more, and now it's on record kind of thing. That probably helps a little bit too. But yeah, it's so easy to miss things for sure. Is this showing good on your? Okay, on my screen it's showing it twirling, so it's like freaking me out a little bit. I don't know.
That's what I was just looking at. As I saw that, I kind of glanced up at your screen and I saw that loading symbol where it's spinning. Yeah, which is what I usually get before it crashes on us.
Yeah,
but I got nothing on mine right now.
Okay, I'll just refresh my thing here to see if it'll. Yeah, there now it's showing fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Then he goes on and says, each time I reread through the books, they still have the power to make me laugh or bring me to tears. I cry every time some of my favorite characters die. I know exactly what's coming, yet still Eddie's death brings me to tears. Every time I read the line, "Kill me if you will, but command me nothing," sends shivers down my spine each and every time. It's definitely masterful work. And you know what? That line just reading it from the email just now gave me chills.
Yeah.
And when I read it the first time when it came in through the email, it gave me chills too. I was like, even just him quoting it is like, it's one of my favorite freaking lines. And Frank Muller's performance of it too is incredible.
Yeah, it's so good.
it's incredible. So yeah, totally feel you on that. I definitely love that as well.
Yeah.
Dude, the Blaine stuff, man. I swear, it's great. Then he goes on and says, that's why I'm so excited to have found your podcast. I didn't know there were people out there who were as obsessed with the Dark Tower series and all of its characters and beautiful landscapes, villains and such as I am. And yep, you definitely found the right place, because that is certainly us. And we are definitely, you probably figured it out up to this point, that we're definitely ones that go deep on things. We're not just like the fans. We're like, yeah, that was fun. And then you move on. Like, no, we're like ones that are like, we got to talk about this for 7 hours.
That's what we do. And unfortunately, we also have people like Tad and his little cohorts that are fans of the evil people.
Cohorts. Hey, villains have all the fun, sir. That's all I'm saying.
At least you're admitting that they're villains this time.
So-called villains.
Can we use that sound clip for the summit when you say the villains have all the fun?
Well, I wasn't talking about Flag. I mean,
right.
I'm just talking about like Pennywise and well, I just blanked on her name, Kathy Bates, Annie Wilkes. Yeah. The Overlook. I don't know.
The ghosts?
Alcoholism? I don't know what the villain we're talking about there. Yeah, those kind of villains, people that go through and shoot up a whole town of people and leave them all dead, women, children, all that kind of stuff. Villains like that. Oh,
that's not even in one of my boys. That's your boy. That's Roland that you're throwing in the mud now.
People that smuggle drugs into the United States on airplanes.
Oh. he never got charged with anything. You can't prove anything.
Yeah, sure. Then he goes on and says, I just started listening to your podcast yesterday, and I've downloaded all the episodes. Mm-hmm. I've listened to your most recent just to see where you guys are at, and I'm very happy to see you're only in book 2. for the book clubs. And like we mentioned earlier, we're definitely we're slowed down by the movie a little bit, but also we're somewhat meticulous too. There's times I'll like read like a half a chapter for like prepping for a book club, and then we get through half of that. We get through like a quarter of a chapter. But
we love our tangents here at Dark Tower Palaver.
Yeah,
we do.
I mean, it's that, but it's like, what's crazy though? Can you imagine if we did book clubs with spoilers not an issue?
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, like every line would be like, well, this could be a reference to this part of like book 7, and this could be this. Like, I honestly thought about that at one point. I think it was like a few weeks ago. I was like, dude, like honestly, the fact that we restrict the spoiler discussions has probably reduced. Like, if we did spoiler discussions, dude, we might barely be starting book 2 right now,
if that.
Because think about like that whole like Flag,
the Golgotha
thing. Yeah, like that probably would have been 3 or 4 or 5 episodes long if we just went crazy with like connecting the rest of the series through that. Like, oh yeah, it would have been nuts. Which maybe that would be an interesting thing to do for a round table episode.
What?
Go through an event like that and talk just about it in the context of the larger series. Yeah, that'd be kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, it certainly does help that we're doing that. But yeah, we are still somewhat slow. And he says, I'm not listening, or let's see, he says, I think he says, I'm not listening from the beginning all the way through each of your episodes. And yeah, I think he means he is listening through each of your episodes. And I have so many comments and things to say, but I don't know if they would be relevant, as the episodes I'm listening to here are quite old. So I figured I'd at least drop a line here and bullet point a couple of things. And honestly, if there's something you want to talk about from an older episode,
bring it up.
Like I mentioned earlier even, there's some people that don't go back and listen to all the old episodes, so go ahead and bring anything up that you want to bring up. Like, never hold yourself back, because there may be a lot of people that didn't hear the episode that you're listening to. And who knows, our views and opinions on things may have changed. I know Peter's been through the book series very recently, and honestly, I've been thinking about maybe taking, I mean, not that I've been going that quickly through the Unfound Door episodes, but I have thought about pausing it to go through the Dark Tower series again, because I'm not going to do the Dark Tower series through the Unfound Door episodes, obviously, because the book clubs, but I've thought it has been a couple years. I almost think it's probably been since the first year or so that we did the podcast that I've read that series. It's actually at the bottom of my...
it's at the bottom of your Audible?
All of them. The only one that isn't is book 4 for some reason. I'm trying to remember if I listened to book 4 on its own, but like the rest of the entire series, they're all at the bottom of my list on Audible. But like book 4 is like halfway up for some reason. Don't know why. Weird. I'm trying to think. I know at one point I was considering reading book 4 just on its own, just to kind of get the story of the backstory side. But maybe I did do that.
Did you do that for when we were doing the comics?
Could have been,
because we were talking about going pretty heavy in the comics at the first of this year.
But it's also my favorite book, so I was kind of thinking at one point just to listen through it kind of in a bubble and just kind of just for my own benefit. But like maybe I did that because that's the only thing I could think of as to why that one would be disconnected from the rest of the series. But
maybe
once I saw that at the bottom of my list, I was like, man, maybe I should just listen through these all over the next like month or whatever, which could work out too, especially with the Flag Summon.
Yeah,
could be good to go through and refresh on my boy,
that evil bastard.
Just listen to the Stand, so I'm up on that now. Just refresh myself on the rest of the Dark Tower series, and
it's just so evil like that. I just don't understand it.
Okay, then he goes on and says, I can't wait to hear what you guys think of the way Book 7 ends, and I know you're getting into that episode shortly in my list, or in my listen through, so I'm eagerly awaiting starting the beginning of that one, which, yeah, that's one of my favorite episodes overall. Not that I've listened to it much recently, but, like, I remember just enjoying that episode, like, going through and talking about the ending and stuff. Yeah. But, yeah, that's a fun one. And he says, there are several other topics I would love to discuss with you, such as several discrepancies I've found. Perhaps I go so far as to call them mistakes in the text. I want to see your thoughts on them. In fact, I've wanted to discuss these issues with someone for years, so I'm thinking I'm going to compose a separate email and send them off with some mistake discrepancies in the stories and see what you guys think. And that's an interesting one.
Oh, yeah. I caught one in the book clubs.
Things that you've been waiting for years to talk to people.
Yeah.
This is the perfect place. He actually, spoiler alert, does have that in his next email.
He has that one?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Then he says, once again, thanks for doing the podcast. I'm so happy to know there are others out there like me, Dark Tower fans to the last. And that is definitely us. And he signs off, long days and pleasant nights. Signed, Chris from Pennsylvania.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And we'll jump into your next email with the discrepancies. And so let's start off here. It says, hi guys, Chris from Pennsylvania here again. I wanted to drop you a line with regards to several errors I picked up over the years in the text. Not the spelling or grammar, mind you, but discrepancies in the story. Wanted to see if you guys are aware of them and what you think of them, and perhaps might have an explanation or a different understanding or take on what they might mean. Here's what I'm talking about. Now, I am going to preface this because I've read these. Well, no, I'll just get to it when we get to that point. So the first one, he says, in the final sequence of the drawing of the three, while Roland is inhabiting Jack Mort, it makes it very clear in the gun shop, Roland buys 4 boxes of ammunition. Each of those boxes has 50 shells. Now, as Roland inside Jack runs down the subway with the boxes of ammunition shoved down the front of his pants, he jumps in front of the train, and at the last moment, Roland comes back through Midworld through the door. In the beginning of the very next book, it is said that Roland returned with more than 300 shells. He only grabbed 4 boxes of 50, with each box that contains 200 shells. Where did the other 100 shells come from? They weren't his own because all that had remaining were the wets that he said that he returned with, but it said that he returned with more than 300. Now, this is an odd one. I don't know what you think, but like, it's an odd one for me because like, I know that like in the book where he talks about, Steven in the intro talks about Frank Muller's death. He talks about how Frank is the voice of the Dark Tower for him because before writing each book, he would go and listen to the books that way
on tape. Yeah.
So this honestly just feels to me like a mistake, but it's like, if you're going to go through and listen to book 2 before writing book 3, how do you make a mistake like that? It's just weird to me.
Well, one question I have is, where do we get the number 4 boxes? Because isn't that where he asks for 4 boxes, and that's where the gun store owner shuts him down and says, "Okay, let me see your card." And Roland goes, "Oh, okay, and never mind. I see that gun cleaning kit," and that's where he devises the plan. Maybe he grabbed an extra 100 after that.
I think
that's the only thing I can think of. I have to go back and look at drawing the 3 more. We're going to get there.
We're going to get there probably middle, or I don't know,
middle of next year.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Maybe not. It'll be tough to say. But no, it would be interesting. I think what would be interesting to see is because that could be it. That could be the reason for the discrepancy is maybe that once he grabs them in all the mayhem, maybe he grabs more than the 4 boxes.
Yeah.
So the question would be is when he's shoving them in the pants or whatever, does it then at that point specify 4 boxes? Or anywhere past the gun store, does it mention 4 boxes? If so, then it's just a mistake. If not, then what you're saying is probably the explanation is that he may have grabbed, 5, I don't know, or I guess what did he say? 300 shells. So that would have been two other boxes.
So it would have been
6
6 boxes.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. We'll have to, as we get there, we'll definitely be thinking about that now for that when we get to that book club.
Tad?
No, that's a good explanation,
Yeah.
because when I was reading it, as I was putting it into my thing here for the mailbag, I was like, I don't know.
I was gonna say, because I remember because I think it's hilarious. It's one of those fish out of water moments where he like yells at the gun store owner, 4 boxes. I'll take 4 boxes, and he's like, okay, let me see your card.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, that's I'm gonna give Peter the gold star on that one. He definitely seems like the best explanation, unless the text ends up showing us that it does say 4 boxes.
If the text absolutely says 4 boxes, then yeah,
like
that
he
theory is shafted.
Not that he's asking for, but that he eventually grabs. Like if it says he grabs 4 boxes, shoves them down the front of his pants, runs, or if it says like he pulls the 4 boxes out of the pants as he's jumping in front of the train, then it would be a mistake. That's just like King. And the other thing is, I think it really comes down to is like with some of this stuff is it probably comes down to King writing them so far apart that maybe.
Well, the thing that, and this goes back to what you were saying, like King listens to it and everything like that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that King's going to remember every single little detail from his listen through.
Yeah, and it makes
I honestly imagine I picture King listening, but not listening,
not really taking notes.
You've done this with the audiobooks where you've been doing like you've done it with like show prep and stuff like that, where you have something on and you're not necessarily watching it, listening to it.
Yeah.
I do that with my audiobooks. I have a video game that I play that has like very little. There's no story. It's just like an open world building kind of game, kind of like Minecraft but with zombies.
Yeah.
So I don't really have to pay attention that much. I'll turn on a hockey game, radio call, or I'll turn on my audiobook while I'm playing.
Yeah.
But I'm still listening, but I'm not undivided attention, headphones in, or driving in the car like I usually am listening.
And wouldn't audiobooks be less reliable in some ways? Because like if you had the pages in front of you, then you might have like a yellow notepad where you're just like, 300.
Yeah, exactly.
300 rounds or whatever.
200 rounds, yeah.
Or, 200 rounds, that kind of thing. Where if you're doing an audiobook, it's maybe a little bit more passive in a way.
Yeah.
But I do think in some cases, the fact that there's such a difference from book to book in terms of years written, I think sometimes that's where some of this stuff might come from. But it's hard to say. I mean, like the beach thing that we talked about in the first book club, the second, or the early,
first book club of the second episode.
Yeah, the second book. Yeah. Like there's the whole thing about which way he's going and where the beach is oriented wrong, like which is actually kind of a famous flub that gets talked about quite a bit in the Dark Tower community. But you're the one that spotted it. Like the way I read is just kind of throws me off a little bit.
Well, you're all. Correct me. I'm trying to remember.
I'm more dialogue.
Yeah, you're all about the dialogue.
Focused.
So like whenever it gets into those like descriptive things, like Roland turned and faced north, and the beach was on his right, and it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hold on.
And like to me, I just don't think through that stuff that heavily.
Yeah.
And like honestly, the book clubs have helped me in a lot of ways. Where I'm like, and even I will say first of all the audiobooks. Because there's times I will honestly, like reading back in the day before Audible, I would be reading and I would just skim through an action paragraph and just like probably didn't really catch more than like 10% of it, but like then I get to like the next dialogue or whatever, and like that's kind of what I focus on more. I don't know, I'm not necessarily that's a good thing, but then when I got Audible and got audiobooks, like with it reading to you, it was a lot more like like now you're actually hearing each thing. So for me, it actually got me more attention to detail because I'm like, oh shit, like yeah, it just read that to me. So now I'm like, oh god, I've never noticed that before. But the book clubs have done that to me is the next step of that, where like as we're going through line by line a lot more meticulously, suddenly there's like action things that are like, oh shit, yeah, like if you would have quizzed me on this, I would have got that wrong because I've never really paid attention to that detail before. I could tell you a line of dialogue a lot easier than I could tell you like how many rounds did Roland shoot into Shardik or whatever. Like I don't know. That kind of stuff would be a little bit less.
The answer to that question would be 0. Roland didn't have a gun in the confrontation with Shardik.
See? Trick question. All right. Number 2, he says, book 7, while Roland and the Tet are attacking Blue Heaven, the fire is automatic trigger fire, or the the fire is automatically triggered the fire response team Bravo to respond automatically to the burning dormitories. It is very, very clearly described that these large fire engines are manned by robots and ran on cushions of air. However, not only is it then described that one of the fire engines runs over Tammy, crushing her under its wheels, then crashes into the building, and the wheel gets stuck in some sort of cellar way, like a window well, is what I kind of imagined. And he says this discrepancy here is if the fire trucks ran on cushions of air like their hovercrafts, they wouldn't have wheels. So how could Tammy be crushed under the wheels of the fire truck, and the wheels of the fire truck get stuck in the basement entryway of the Dimley house if they don't have wheels on them in the first place? And like honestly, when I was first looking at this, I went through and looked on my
Kindle.
I went through and searched like Bravo fire response team Bravo and looked at everything, and yeah, it's just like that. Like it says wheels there, and then like not a couple pages down away, yeah, it's like Tammy's getting crushed by the wheels, and then it's getting stuck with the wheels. I don't know, other than the King just like,
I got one explanation. This is way out there. I'm gonna throw this out there.
You're good. Yeah, as I was saying, usually I'm really good at like finagling in my mind, like to
no,
like
this is straight up. This is straight up gonna be Peter bullshit right here.
I'm drawing blanks on these.
You ready for this one?
Go on.
The DeLorean still had wheels. And that motherfucker flew.
That's true. In the second movie.
In the second and third one. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just saying, while it ran on air cushions, they may have still had wheels.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that it ran on air cushions, so there was no wheels. But aside from that, man, I never caught that.
No, I didn't. And again, this is one of the ones I wanted to preface the fact that I'm more focused on dialogue in general. Like, I just wouldn't have caught that. Like, honest to God, like, I remember the fire trucks, but like, until his email, the robot thing wasn't even something that I remembered that heavily.
Seriously?
Just,
oh my God, my voice.
I don't know why it is. Like, I will say it could be my memory too, because I've listened to it now a number of times, so I would have heard them say robots, but it's not one of those things that's stuck in my mind heavily enough.
It's so robotic, and like even like the dialogue.
But to me, like, I guess like in my mind, it's just they're so meaningless. Like, yeah, you get some people killed, you crashes, but like I'm more worried about the larger battle that I'm picturing. Yeah. I'm not sitting there going, God, what's driving that fire? Like, it just, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm a witness at the scene, I'm really not spending that much time looking at the fire trucks. I'm looking at everything else that's going. I get in my defense, but it's never been a heavy thing that like has stood in my memory that there's the robotic fire department. I guess I don't know. It's weird. And I don't know. We haven't ever really talked even to a lot of the listeners about like, you know, is this just a weird thing with me or what? But like, yeah, I've always been that way to folks. And I've heard other people that one other person I've talked to, I can't remember who it was, told me that they tended to focus more on actions and less on dialogue. Yeah. You know, so I don't know. That's just definitely me though. But yeah, it could be something like that. I guess the other part of me sci-fi wise would say, you know, if it is on air cushions, would there still be weight in some way? You know, that, I mean, it says wheels, which would be the mistake, but like, would the portions that's like the air cushions would those not be pushing pressure down that could crush someone? The
crushing one, I always thought that was, I missed the part where it says crushed under the wheel. So what I picture is, I always pictured it as a hover thing, and then when the hover thing goes over the body, the person, that it's the air pressure pushing down on them, and that's what crushes them. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking a little bit. And even the wheel well, the window well makes sense a little bit too, because like to me, I've always interpreted hover things like Luke's speeder in Star Wars. Right. That can't go off the ground. Like that is stuck. Hovering a foot or two like tops above the ground. So something like he could if he went off a cliff in that thing, he wouldn't continue holding the thing he's at. He would fall until he was again a foot off the ground. So like with something, and maybe even slam into the ground with like gravity and everything. Yeah, like with Luke's speeder, I always pictured like the gravitational things across the whole bottom, or like the air thing is across the whole bottom. Mm-hmm. But with this, if the air pocket things were under the points where the wheels would be, it would then easily be caught in a window well as well, because it can't project enough power to go all the way to the bottom of that window well to push it back up. Right. It would then be stuck. Which is why it would tilt. But the fact that he calls it wheels when saying that it's floating, that's the part that I don't get. Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think here. I should have kept it, but I was just pulling up the thing to see if I could find it. But
Yeah, I think that's probably what I would say for me is like would be it is like if it like in general I've always interpreted hover vehicles are like even like again Star Wars is the big context for me. Hover vehicles are different than spaceships. There's a difference between Luke's speeder and Han's ship because Han's ship can actually go up, not just up but into space as well. Because I think there's also like there's an intermediate thing I think in Star Wars is how I've always interpreted it. There are vehicles that can get off the ground but they can't really go into space. I'm trying to think if there's really any in the movies though. I know like because like in one of the video games,
episode 2, the Battle of Geonosis, the landing transport,
landing craft. Yeah, or no, episode 2, the Zam Wessel chase scene. Those vehicles that are flying around Coruscant, those things couldn't go in space.
No.
So I feel like there's like those 3 different things, and I've always interpreted like hovercraft ones like there is something like whether it's like some magnetic thing or whatever. I've never really interpreted that with the magnetic thing that wouldn't really kill people like being underneath that, but with the air cushions. I almost wonder with the weight of the air cushions, would that be enough to crush Tammy? And I do believe there would be enough to catch the window well. So without being able to,
we're dumb. Pod racers, all of those float.
Those feel more like the speeders to me,
like kind of like speeders,
because they stay pretty low to the ground. Like sure. I'm thinking like ones that could fly up in like that third dimension, without going into space.
Is kind of like Tony Stark's thing in Captain America. I mean Howard Stark's thing.
The car.
They take the wheels off, which is what I think a lot of people picture, is that there's not going to be wheels. But what I picture is like the DeLorean that still has the wheels.
Yeah.
And that's what it sits on when it's on the ground. But when it decides to fly, when it decides to hover, it's going to use the air cushions and stuff like that to keep it up off the ground. But when they go to park the fire truck, what I picture is with that in my mind, trying to come up with a logical explanation. Again, this is total Peter BS here. I got nothing to stand on.
I think it works.
Is that there's going to be wheels to sit on because you don't want to just you just don't want to put those air cushion generator things down in the dirt on the ground.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's true. But would you interpret the air things enough to crush?
Absolutely.
You know, that kind of thing.
Crush under the wheel does not make sense. That flat out just does not make sense.
So that's just the wrong wording. And I think at times like we know King, like he changes things like towns and geography and stuff for his own purposes. I don't see any reason that he wouldn't invent the whole thing. Who's to say that wasn't the end of a weekend that he invented that when the fire truck's coming out and then he starts Monday morning and then kind of maybe even forgets that they are hovercraft. Who knows? But I still think it's one of those things that there's plenty of things to explain why those both make sense in context of it. It's funny because I didn't think of that while I was reading it then originally, but now that's probably what I would say is it all makes sense actually now. In my head, it does.
The wheel thing being crushed under the wheel thing is the only part that really doesn't make sense. Your window well thing, the analogy there where like if you go over like a slight drop, it's going to go tip down, and that's what I picture too.
Yeah.
But crushed under the wheel makes absolutely no sense. Unless it's like...
You don't think the air would be pressurized under the weight of that vehicle?
Well, then why would they say wheel? That's the part that I...
Oh, yeah. Apart from that, though. Remove the wheel words.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree that the person going under that, even if there was no wheels, if it's just air cushion, would absolutely be crushed by the air pushing them into the ground.
Okay.
It's just a simple statement that they say the wheel.
Yeah.
When the wheel's not on the ground because it's floating... The wheel can't crush something then.
Yeah.
Is what I have a problem with.
Totally. All right. So that's that one. And I'm trying to remember. Then he goes, okay, that's enough for now. Just a couple more things I could ramble on about, but I figure I'd just throw these couple out there because I wanted to get your opinions and start a dialogue. These are things I've been stewing on for many, many years, and I'd love to get someone else's educated opinion who is familiar with the work such as I am. Once again, guys, thanks for doing the podcast. It's so good to have a source of both information and someone to conversate with about my favorite work of fiction ever written. He signs off Long Days and Pleasant Nights, signed Chris in Pennsylvania. And
thanks, Chris.
Yeah, may you have twice the number, and keep them coming.
I'm seriously going home and pulling out my copy of Drawing of the Three and looking at the gun store. I'm not waiting. It's bothering me.
Yeah, I do think that your thing, without looking at the text, your idea is probably the most logical. That he asked for 4, but then in the mayhem when it finally happens, he actually ends up grabbing 6.
Because doesn't he even say something that he references the Mortopedia or whatever he calls it, the Mortsopedia, with how much cash he has on him.
Yeah,
but then if he's not paying for it, Just take as much as you can.
Yeah, exactly. So it'd be interesting to look at. Yeah, I'll probably look at the same thing once you're gone too. So we'll both have looked it up after the fact. Yeah, that's that's a good one though. And it's actually a little bit short, but since Peter's dying of Captain Trips here, I think we might close up shop a little bit early.
Oh God, thank you. My voice hurts so bad.
It's only about 15-20 minutes less than we would normally do, but yeah, Peter's and also for my own sake, so that hopefully I don't get infected if I'm not already. But
you got to use the hand sanitizer after we clean up.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and drink a couple shots of it. Just to...
What are you talking about? Drink this fine liquor you have over here on your liquor cabinet.
Oh, I will. I'll smoke out any sickness as quick as I can with some bourbon or something. Yeah, exactly. So let me go ahead and get over to the closing info here. Thank you guys, first of all, for everything, and please give us some input on some of the stuff we mentioned earlier. We'd love to hear from you guys. If you guys want to subscribe, rate, and review us, you can do that on iTunes. You can find us on any podcast service. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can find the show notes at darktowerpalaver.com. And if you want to engage in the palaver, as Chris in Pennsylvania did, you can do that in a number of ways. Peter, what's the main ways?
The best way is to email us like Chris did. It's darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. You can also follow us on the Twitter. It's @darktowerpod. That's @darktowerpod. We stream our live shows for the roundtables on youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. Book clubs also stream live, but they don't stay posted due to the copyright issues. You can find a catalog of back episodes on there as well.
Indeed. So yeah, next time I'm just gonna I'll just throw it out there. We love book clubs, but we're gonna do
a book club, just different book.
The Stand, yeah. And I'm gonna do at least one with Peter, but I'm not even promising that I won't do some extracurricular ones on my own, because I don't know if one episode's enough for me. But I definitely want to get one episode with you at least with talking about The Stand.
It may end up being a longer episode.
Yeah, it could be that too. Definitely.
We may have to start a little bit early.
To avoid the heavy traffic internet period.
Well, not only that, but I got to work tomorrow on Sundays, so I work at 6 a.m., so not going until 9 o'clock would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, look for us next time as we talk about some Unfound Horror action for The Stand. My singular favorite book of the King franchise. I mean,
it's up
there.
The
Dark Tower is awesome, but it's a group effort. I have a hard time picking any single Dark Tower book and ranking it above The Stand personally. It's one I read every year, and I can't wait to talk about it. Loved reading it again. Last year, I skipped for the first time since I read The Stand the first time. It was the first time I didn't do it so I guess I've done it every year except for last year. But yeah, I think it made me appreciate it more this year now, having missed it. So join us next time in a couple weeks to talk about The Stand, and then the time after that we'll be actually, where does that put us, actually, now that I think about it?
That puts us, the next time is The Stand, and then we'll have one more episode.
Okay, so The Stand is the 17th. Then we got a book club the 1st, and then the Flag Summit the 15th.
Yep.
Okay, so that'll put us through the end of the year. I can't believe we're there already, but we are. So we will sign off as we always do and say long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks. I promise I'll be better next time.
If you survive. And then if anyone's in the chat, I don't think they are. It shows 2, but I think it's showing me now. So
I signed out already.
Oh, okay. Well, if anyone's still here in the chat, everyone's been kind of quiet except for Monster Games early on when we were talking about The Stand publication things. But thanks for joining us, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.